The story begins at a busy airport, where the constant buzz of travelers fills the air. Announcements echo over the intercom, blending with the hum of rolling suitcases and hurried footsteps. Amidst the chaos stands a flight attendant who's anything but ordinary. She's known for her outspoken views and fiery personality, someone who doesn't shy away from speaking her mind. Her colleagues admire her for standing up for what she believes in, but sometimes her boldness gets her into tricky situations. On this particular day, everything seems normal as passengers shuffle onto the plane. The flight is fully booked, and the energy is high. Passengers are eager to reach their destinations. Some are heading home, others on vacation, and a few are traveling for work. As the flight attendant greets each passenger with a practiced smile, one individual catches her attention almost immediately. This woman walks in wearing an expensive-looking outfit, her heels clicking loudly against the aisle floor. She moves, with an air of confidence almost like she owns the place. This passenger doesn't acknowledge the flight attendant when boarding. No hello, no nod, not even a glance. It's as if the flight attendant isn't there. This kind of behavior isn't uncommon in the aviation world, but it still stings. The flight attendant tries to brush it off, reminding herself that everyone has bad days. But something about this woman feels different. There's an edge to her demeanor, a sense of entitlement that makes the flight attendant uneasy. As the woman settles into her first-class seat, she pulls out her phone and starts talking loudly. She's discussing what sounds like business deals, her tone sharp and dismissive. Other passengers glance at her, some annoyed, others curious. The flight attendant listens in, unable to ignore the volume of the conversation. There's something about the way the woman speaks, like she's above everyone else, that rubs people the wrong way. Even the usually unflappable flight attendant finds herself clenching her jaw slightly. The tension builds as the pre-flight safety demonstration begins. The flight attendant demonstrates how to use the oxygen mask and life vest, explaining the procedures clearly and professionally. Most passengers pay attention, but the woman in first class doesn't bother. Instead, she scrolls through her phone, laughing at something on the screen. It's obvious she's not interested in the briefing. To her, it's probably just background noise, something irrelevant to someone of her status. This lack of respect hits a nerve with the flight attendant. After finishing the demonstration, she approaches the woman gently. "Excuse me, ma'am," she says, keeping her voice calm and polite. "I noticed you weren't following along during the safety briefing. It's really important for everyone's protection." The woman looks up briefly, smirking before responding. "Oh, don't worry about me. I've flown enough times to know how this works." Her tone is dripping with condescension, and the words sting more than the flight attendant expected. For a moment, the flight attendant freezes, unsure how to respond. She forces a smile and walks away, muttering under her breath about entitled passengers. What she doesn't realize is that the woman heard every word. The seed of conflict has been planted, and it's only a matter of time before things escalate. For now, though, the flight attendant focuses on her duties, serving drinks and ensuring the cabin is secure for takeoff. Little does she know, this encounter is far from over, and it will change both their lives in ways neither could have anticipated. As the plane ascends into the sky, the atmosphere inside remains tense. The flight attendant can feel eyes watching her, judging her every move. Meanwhile, the woman in first class continues to act as if she owns the aircraft, oblivious, or perhaps indifferent, to the growing resentment around her. The stage is set for a confrontation, and the rest of the flight promises to be anything but smooth. The tension in the cabin grows thicker as the flight progresses. Passengers settle into their routines. Some nap, others watch movies, and a few chat quietly with their seatmates. But the atmosphere around first class feels different. The woman, in the expensive outfit, continues to dominate the space, her presence impossible to ignore. Her phone is still glued to her hand, and her voice carries over the hum of the engines as she talks animatedly about deals, deadlines, and people who just don't get it. The flight attendant tries to focus on her tasks, moving through the aisles with practiced efficiency. She serves drinks, hands out snacks, and checks on passengers, all while keeping a polite smile plastered on her face. But every time she passes, the woman in first class, she feels a flicker of irritation. It's not just the loud talking or the blatant disregard for basic courtesy. It's the attitude. There's something about the way the woman carries herself, like she's untouchable, that makes the flight attendant's blood boil. Things take a turn when it's time to serve coffee. The flight attendant carefully balances a tray loaded with cups, making her way toward first class. As she leans over to place a cup on the woman's tray table, disaster strikes. A slight bump sends hot coffee spilling onto the woman's designer jacket. The flight attendant freezes, her heart sinking as she watches the dark liquid spread across the fabric. For a moment, there's complete silence. "I'm so sorry," the flight attendant blurts out, her voice tinged with panic. She grabs a stack of napkins and starts dabbing at the stain, apologizing profusely. "Please let me help clean this up. I'll do whatever I can to fix it." Her hands tremble as she works, embarrassment washing over her. This kind of mistake is rare for her. She's usually meticulous about her work. But today, stress and frustration have clearly gotten the better of her. To her surprise, the woman doesn't accept the apology. Instead, she snaps, her voice cutting through the cabin like a knife. "Do you even know how much this costs? You people are always so careless." The words hit hard, and the flight attendant feels her cheeks flush with shame and anger. She opens her mouth to respond but stops herself, knowing that arguing won't help the situation. Still, the insult lingers, festering inside her like an open wound. For a moment, the flight attendant considers walking away, but something snaps. Maybe it's the condescending tone, or the dismissive look in the woman's eyes, or the weight of years of dealing with difficult passengers. Whatever it is, she loses control. Before she can think twice, her hand shoots out, connecting with the side of the woman's face in a sharp slap. The sound echoes through the cabin, followed by a collective gasp from the passengers. Time seems to freeze. The woman stares at the flight attendant, her expression a mix of shock and fury. The flight attendant's hand hovers in midair, trembling now with disbelief. Did she really just do that? Her mind races as reality sets in. She's crossed a line, a big one, and there's no going back. Passengers crane their necks to see what's happening, whispers spreading like wildfire. Some look horrified, others amused, and a few seem to silently cheer for the flight attendant. The woman in first class breaks the silence, her voice icy and controlled. "You're going to regret this," she says, her eyes narrowing. She calls for the captain, her tone leaving no room for negotiation. The flight attendant steps back, her legs feeling like jelly. She knows she's in serious trouble. Her career, her reputation, everything she's worked for is hanging by a thread. Word spreads quickly among the crew. Another flight attendant rushes over, pulling her aside. "What happened?" they whisper urgently. The flight attendant explains, her voice shaking. "I lost it. She was rude and I spilled coffee on her jacket, and then she said, her voice trails off as tears well up in her eyes. The coworker places a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll figure this out," they say, though their tone suggests they're not entirely convinced. Meanwhile, the woman in first class has moved to another seat, refusing to look in the flight attendant's direction. Her jaw is set, her posture rigid. She pulls out her phone again, typing furiously. The flight attendant can't help but wonder who she's messaging. Her boss? A lawyer? Whoever it is, it's clear she's not letting this go easily. As the plane cruises through the sky, the mood in the cabin shifts. Passengers exchange glances, some nodding sympathetically at the flight attendant, others shaking their heads in disapproval. The once routine flight has turned into a spectacle, and everyone is waiting to see what happens next. The flight attendant retreats to the galley, trying to collect herself. She leans against the counter, taking deep breaths. Her mind races with questions. What will happen when they land? Will she lose her job? Is this the end of her career? Back in first class, the woman sits stiffly, her arms crossed. She glances at her stained jacket, then at the flight attendant standing near the galley. There's a flicker of something in her eyes. Anger, yes, but also something else. Satisfaction, maybe? It's hard to tell. Either way, it's clear she's not done yet. The rest of the flight passes in tense silence. The flight attendant avoids eye contact with passengers, focusing instead on her duties. Every step she takes feels heavier than the last, the weight of her actions pressing down on her. When the seatbelt sign finally lights up for landing, she lets out a shaky breath. This isn't over, not by a long shot. As the plane touches down, the usual claps and cheers from passengers are replaced by an eerie silence. No one moves right away. Everyone seems to be waiting for what happens next. The flight attendant stands frozen near the galley, gripping the edge of the counter. Her heart pounds in her chest as she watches the woman in first class gather her things with deliberate slowness. There's a coldness in her movements, like she's savoring every second of this moment. The instant the seatbelt sign switches off, the woman strides toward the front of the plane, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. She doesn't look back or say a word, just pushes past other passengers, her face unreadable. The flight attendant knows she's heading straight to file a complaint, but there's nothing she can do now except brace herself for whatever comes next. Security is already waiting at the gate when the door opens. Two uniformed officers step aboard, their presence immediately drawing attention. Passengers crane their necks to see what's happening, some snapping photos discreetly while others whisper among themselves. One officer approaches the flight attendant, his expression neutral but firm. "Ma'am, could you please come with us?" he asks, gesturing toward the exit. Her stomach drops. This is it, the moment she's been dreading. She nods silently, avoiding eye contact with anyone as she follows them off the plane. As she steps into the terminal, flashes go off around her. Reporters have somehow caught wind of the incident and they swarm her like bees to honey. Microphones are thrust in her face, cameras roll, and questions fly at her from all directions. What happened on the plane? Did you really slap a passenger? Do you regret your actions? She stumbles backward, overwhelmed by the sudden chaos. A security guard steps in, guiding her through the crowd and shielding her from the barrage of questions. Her mind races. How did they find out so quickly? Who leaked the story? All she wants is to disappear, to rewind time and undo what she's done. But deep down, she knows that's impossible. By the time she reaches a private room set aside for questioning, her hands are trembling and her throat feels dry. Inside, the captain of the flight is already seated, along with a representative from the airline. They exchange tense glances as she takes a seat across from them. The room feels suffocating, the air thick with unspoken judgment. The captain starts by asking her side of the story. She hesitates, unsure where to begin. Should she admit fault outright, or should she explain why she snapped? Taking a deep breath, she decides to be honest. She recounts everything: the rude comments, the spilled coffee, the insult about being careless. Her voice cracks as she describes how humiliated she felt in that moment. "I know I shouldn't have hit her," she says finally, tears welling up in her eyes. "But I lost control." The airline representative listens intently, jotting notes on a clipboard. When she finishes speaking, they ask if she understands the seriousness of her actions. She nods, swallowing hard. Of course, she understands. It's all she's thought about since the slap landed. Losing her temper might cost her not only her job but also her reputation in an industry where professionalism is everything. While she waits for further instructions, news of the incident spreads like wildfire online. Social media platforms explode with reactions. Some people defend her, saying the passenger had it coming. Others criticize her behavior, calling her unprofessional and reckless. Memes and hashtags pop up within hours, turning the event into a viral sensation. Strangers weigh in with opinions, many without knowing the full context. To the world, she's become a symbol, either of justified rebellion or unacceptable misconduct. Back in the meeting room, the gravity of the situation sinks in even deeper. The airline representative informs her that the woman in first class has filed a formal complaint and is demanding consequences. Not only that, but higher-ups are involved now. It turns out the woman's husband owns the airline, a fact no one mentioned earlier. Suddenly, everything clicks into place. The designer, clothes, the entitled attitude, the swift involvement of security. This isn't just any passenger. It's someone with significant power and influence. The realization hits her like a punch to the gut. She's gone from being a hard-working flight attendant trying to make ends meet to a pawn in a much bigger game. The odds feel stacked against her, and for the first time she wonders if owning up to her mistake will even matter. Will anyone care about her side of the story when the person she slapped has connections that reach far beyond the skies? Desperate for advice, she calls her best friend later that evening. Her voice shakes as she explains what happened, leaving out no details. On the other end of the line, her friend listens patiently before offering words of encouragement. "You made a mistake," they say gently, "but you're human. Own up to it, show remorse, and fight for yourself. Don't let them define who you are based on one bad decision." Their conversation gives her a small sense of clarity. Yes, she messed up. Yes, she acted impulsively. But she's more than this moment. She resolves to take responsibility for her actions while standing firm in her belief that respect should go both ways, between passengers and crew alike. The next day, she attends a hearing to determine her fate. Walking into the conference room feels surreal. Lawyers, airline executives, and union representatives sit around a large table, discussing her case as though she's not even there. Finally, the woman in first class arrives, flanked by 2 assistants. She looks calm and composed, her demeanor icy yet polished. If she's angry or upset, she hides it well. When it's time for statements, the woman speaks first. Her tone is measured, almost rehearsed, as she emphasizes the importance of professionalism and mutual respect. She paints the flight attendant as reckless and unfit for her role, making sure to highlight the impact of the incident on her own dignity. The flight attendant listens quietly, her fists clenched under the table. Every word feels like another blow, but she forces herself to stay composed. Then it's her turn to speak. Standing up, she takes a deep breath and begins. Her voice trembles at first, but as she continues, it grows steadier. She admits to losing her temper and apologizes sincerely for crossing a line. But she also shares her perspective. The years of dealing with difficult passengers, the pressure of working long hours, and the frustration of feeling disrespected. "I'm not proud of what I did," she concludes, looking directly at the panel. "But I hope you can understand why it happened." For a moment there's silence, then slowly the panel members nod, exchanging thoughtful glances. It's clear her honesty has struck a chord, even if it doesn't excuse her actions. The verdict isn't immediate, but when it comes, it's a mix of punishment and leniency. She's placed on probation and required to undergo anger management training. While relieved to keep her job, she knows this is only the beginning of rebuilding her life. Outside the conference room, the woman in first class approaches her unexpectedly. Extending a hand, she says coolly, "You're lucky my husband believes in second chances." The flight attendant hesitates but shakes her hand, knowing this gesture is less about forgiveness and more about power dynamics. Still, it's a start, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to learn from this experience and grow stronger because of it. The weeks following the hearing feel like a blur. The flight attendant throws herself into her probation requirements, determined to prove she's more than the incident that made headlines. Anger management classes become part of her routine, held in a small, dimly lit room with mismatched chairs and a whiteboard covered in scribbles. At first, she dreads these sessions, feeling out of place among people who seem to come from entirely different walks of life, some dealing with personal struggles far heavier than hers. But as the weeks go by, she begins to see value in the process. The counselor leading the group is patient and insightful, often sharing stories about how anger can stem from deep-seated frustrations or unmet expectations. During one session, he asks everyone to reflect on what triggers their emotions. For her, it doesn't take long to pinpoint the answer: disrespect. Whether it's being talked down to, ignored, or treated like she's invisible, those moments chip away at her patience until something snaps. Admitting this out loud isn't easy. It feels raw and vulnerable. but it helps her understand herself better. She starts journaling after each class, pouring her thoughts onto paper as a way to process everything. Outside of therapy, she immerses herself in self-improvement. She reads books recommended by the counselor, titles about emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and finding balance in stressful environments. Some chapters resonate deeply, while others feel repetitive, but she keeps going because she knows growth takes effort. On weekends, she volunteers at a local shelter, serving meals to people experiencing homelessness. It's humbling work, and it reminds her of the bigger picture. Life is tough for everyone in its own way, and sometimes kindness matters more than anything else. Her colleagues notice the change in her demeanor. Gone is the sharp edge she used to carry. Instead, there's a calmness, a willingness to listen before reacting. They don't bring up the incident directly, at least not to her face, but she overhears snippets of conversations now and then. Most are supportive, acknowledging that anyone could lose their cool under pressure. A few remain skeptical, watching her closely as if waiting for another outburst. She doesn't blame them. Trust takes time to rebuild. Meanwhile, the woman from the flight fades somewhat from her daily thoughts, though reminders pop up occasionally. News outlets continue to speculate about the fallout, painting the story in shades of gray. Some articles frame the flight attendant as a relatable hero standing up to elitism, while others criticize her lack of professionalism. Social media remains divided, with debates raging in comment sections. She avoids reading too much of it, knowing it won't do her any good. Still, it's hard to escape entirely when memes and hashtags keep resurfacing. One day she learns through a coworker that the woman has taken on a new role within her husband's company. Rumors swirl that she's focusing on improving customer relations, particularly between passengers and staff. Could this be a coincidence? Or was the incident a wake-up call for her too? The flight attendant isn't sure what to think. Part of her wants to believe the woman might have gained some perspective, but another part doubts it. After all, power dynamics rarely shift overnight. Months pass, and life begins to settle into a new rhythm. The probation period ends without further issues, and the airline allows her to return to regular duties. Her supervisor pulls her aside one afternoon, offering quiet praise for how she's handled everything. "You've shown real character," he says, his tone sincere. Not everyone would bounce back from something like that. His words mean more to him than he realizes. They're validation that she hasn't lost everything. Then comes an unexpected twist. One evening, she receives an invitation in the mail. It's printed on thick, glossy paper, adorned with elegant script. The message inside is brief but clear. She's been invited to a charity gala hosted by none other than the airline owner, the woman's husband. Her stomach churns as she reads it. Why would they invite her? Is this some kind of trap? Or is it an olive branch? She debates whether to attend, weighing the pros and cons late into the night. Going feels risky, like stepping into unknown territory where judgment lurks around every corner. Staying home, however, feels like running away. And she's tired of running. Finally, she decides to go, telling herself it's an opportunity to face whatever comes next head on. The night of the gala arrives, and she spends extra time getting ready. Dressed in a simple yet elegant outfit, she steps into the grand ballroom filled with chandeliers, live music, and well-dressed guests mingling over hors d'oeuvres. The atmosphere is worlds apart from the cramped cabins and bustling terminals she's used to. She feels out of place but forces herself to blend in, grabbing a glass of sparkling water and scanning the room. It doesn't take long to spot the woman from the flight. She's standing near the center of the room, engaged in conversation with a group of executives. Her posture is poised, her smile polished. As their eyes meet across the crowded space, the flight attendant feels her pulse quicken. Will the woman ignore her? Confront her? Worse yet, make a scene? To her surprise, the woman excuses herself from the group and approaches her. There's no smirk, no coldness, just a neutral expression that's impossible to read. "Thank you for coming," she says, extending a hand. Her voice is softer than before, almost hesitant. I wanted to let you know your actions inspired some changes in our policies. We're working on training programs to improve communication between passengers and staff. The flight attendee blinks, caught off guard. Oh, I didn't expect that, she stammers, shaking the offered hand. I'm glad to hear it. The moment feels surreal, like two sides of a coin finally aligning. They exchange a few more polite words before parting ways, leaving her to wonder if this marks the beginning of closure, or simply another chapter in a complicated story. As the night winds down, she finds herself reflecting on how far she's come since that fateful flight. Losing her temper cost her dearly, but it also taught her resilience, empathy, and the importance of owning her mistakes. Whatever lies ahead, she knows she'll face it with a clearer mind and a stronger heart. The days following the charity gala bring a mix of emotions for the flight attendant. On one hand, she feels a sense of relief that the encounter with the woman went better than expected, and relief that she didn't make a fool of herself at such a high-profile event. On the other hand, there's still an undercurrent of uncertainty. Did the woman truly mean what she said about policy changes? Or was it just polite talk meant to smooth things over in public? She can't shake the feeling that their interaction might have been more performative than genuine. Back at work, life slowly returns to its usual rhythm. The airline seems quieter now, as if everyone is waiting to see how things will unfold. Her colleagues treat her normally, though some occasionally ask about the gala. She keeps her answers vague, not wanting to give too much away or risk misinterpreting the situation herself. What she does share is how the experience made her reflect on her career and her role within the aviation industry. She begins noticing patterns among passengers that she hadn't paid much attention to before. There are those who treat the crew like invisible helpers, snapping orders without so much as a please or thank you. Then there are others who go out of their way to be kind, offering smiles or small gestures of gratitude. These interactions remind her why she became a flight attendant in the first place, not for the long hours or challenging passengers, but for the chance to connect with people from all walks of life. It's a reminder she desperately needed after months of self-doubt. Her newfound perspective starts influencing her approach to work. Instead of reacting defensively when faced with difficult passengers, she tries to empathize. Maybe they're stressed because they missed an important meeting. Maybe they're traveling alone for the first time and don't know how things work. Whatever the reason, she makes an effort to meet them halfway, even if they don't extend the same courtesy. This shift doesn't go unnoticed by her coworkers, who begin to see her as someone who's grown wiser through adversity. Meanwhile, news of the airline's new initiatives trickles down to staff members. Training sessions are announced, focusing on improving communication between passengers and crew. Topics include conflict resolution, cultural sensitivity, and de-escalation techniques. While the flight attendant isn't sure whether these programs were directly inspired by her incident, she can't help but feel a small sense of pride. If her actions sparked even a fraction of positive change, then maybe everything she endured wasn't entirely in vain. One afternoon during a training session, she finds herself paired with another flight attendant, a veteran with decades of experience. They bond over shared stories of tough flights and memorable passengers, laughing about moments that once felt overwhelming, but now seem almost funny in hindsight. At one point, the older colleague leans in and says, "You know, we all lose it sometimes. What matters is how we pick ourselves back up." His words resonate deeply, reinforcing the idea that growth often comes from failure. As weeks turn into months, the flight attendant starts rebuilding her confidence. She takes on extra shifts, volunteers for leadership roles within her team, and even mentors newer employees. Sharing her experiences with them becomes therapeutic. It helps her process her own journey while offering guidance to those navigating similar challenges. She emphasizes the importance of patience, professionalism, and knowing when to step back before emotions take over. Despite her progress, reminders of the past linger. Occasionally, she'll scroll through social media and come across memes or comments referencing the infamous slap. Some posts still mock her while others praise her boldness. Either way, she chooses not to engage. She's learned that people will always have opinions, But those opinions don't define her worth. Instead, she focuses on building a reputation based on consistency and kindness, one flight at a time. Then, unexpectedly, another twist occurs. One day, while scrolling through her email, she notices a message from the airline's corporate office. Curious, she opens it to find an invitation to speak at an upcoming industry conference. The subject line reads, "Sharing lessons learned, building stronger passenger-crew relationships." Her heart skips a beat. Is this real? Was she really chosen to represent the airline? She replies immediately, confirming her attendance and asking for details. A few days later, she receives a follow-up email explaining that the organizers believe her story offers valuable insights into resolving conflicts and fostering mutual respect. They want her to share her perspective, not just as someone who made a mistake, but as someone who grew from it. The request fills her with both excitement and nerves. Public speaking has never been her strong suit, but this feels like an opportunity she can't pass up. Preparing for the conference proves to be both challenging and rewarding. She spends hours crafting her speech, weaving together personal anecdotes, lessons learned, and practical advice for handling difficult situations. She practices in front of the mirror, records herself, and seeks feedback from trusted friends. Each revision brings her closer to finding the right balance between vulnerability and professionalism. When the day of the conference arrives, she steps onto the stage with shaky hands and a racing heart. The room is packed with professionals from across the aviation industry, all eyes on her. As she begins speaking, her voice trembles slightly, but soon her passion takes over. She talks about the pressures of the job, the importance of empathy, and the value of second chances. By the end, the audience erupts into applause, many nodding in agreement or wiping away tears. Afterward, attendees approach her to express gratitude. Some share their own stories of struggles and triumphs, while others thank her for putting words to feelings they've struggled to articulate. For the first time in a long while, she feels seen, not as the person who lost her temper on a plane, but as someone who's worked hard to rise above her mistakes. This moment marks a turning point. She realizes that healing isn't about forgetting the past. It's about learning from it and using those lessons to create something meaningful. And as she walks off the stage, surrounded by warmth and encouragement, she knows she's exactly where she's meant to be. The aftermath of the conference brings a wave of unexpected changes for the flight attendant. What started as a single moment of vulnerability on stage transforms into something much bigger. Her speech resonates deeply with people in the aviation industry, sparking conversations about the challenges faced by flight crews and the need for better communication between passengers and staff. For the first time, she feels like her voice matters, not just to herself, but to others who have felt silenced or overlooked. Media outlets pick up her story again, this time focusing less on the slap and more on her journey of growth. Journalists reach out for interviews, eager to hear how she turned such a public mistake into an opportunity for change. At first she hesitates, worried that revisiting the past might reopen old wounds, but after some thought, she decides to embrace it. If sharing her experience can help even one person feel less alone, then it's worth it. During one interview, she sits across from a journalist in a quiet cafe, sipping tea as cameras roll. The questions start simple enough. How did you feel when everything blew up online? And what was going through your mind during that flight? She answers honestly, describing the shame, anger, and fear that consumed her in those early days. Then the tone shifts. Do you think airlines do enough to support their employees? The journalist asks. This question catches her off guard. It's not something she's prepared for, but it stirs something inside her. She pauses, choosing her words carefully. I think there's room for improvement, she says finally. Flight attendants work incredibly hard under tough conditions. We're human beings too, and sometimes we make mistakes. But instead of just punishing us, I believe companies should focus on helping us grow and learn. Her response strikes a chord, earning nods from the crew filming the segment. As the weeks go by, her newfound visibility opens doors she never imagined. Airlines from around the world invite her to speak at workshops and training sessions. Industry leaders ask for her input on creating policies that prioritize mental health and conflict resolution. Even passengers begin approaching her mid-flight to thank her for speaking out. These interactions remind her that her story has lives beyond what she initially thought possible. But not everything is smooth sailing. Some critics still cling to the past, accusing her of using her platform to seek attention or justify bad behavior. Online trolls occasionally resurface, posting snarky comments or mocking memes. At first, these remarks sting, bringing back memories of the darkest days following the incident. However, she's learned to let them slide. She reminds herself that negativity will always exist. It's part of life, but dwelling on it only gives it power over her. One evening, while scrolling through social media, she comes across a post from someone claiming to be a former passenger. The caption reads, "I met this incredible flight attendant once. She changed my perspective on how we treat each other." Attached is a photo of her smiling warmly beside a young traveler. Tears well up in her eyes as she reads the heartfelt message below. This stranger had been traveling alone for the first time, nervous and unsure of what to expect. A few kind words from her made all the difference. That moment sticks with her long after she closes her phone. It's proof that small acts of kindness can leave lasting impressions. Amidst the whirlwind of opportunities, she also finds time to reflect on her personal growth. Therapy continues to play a key role in her journey, helping her unpack lingering emotions and develop healthier coping mechanisms. She learns to set boundaries, both professionally and personally, recognizing when to step back before frustration boils over. Friends notice the change too, commenting on how much calmer and centered she seems compared to before. Her relationship with her colleagues deepens as well. They often joke about her sudden rise to industry fame, teasing her good-naturedly whenever reporters mention her name. Beneath the humor, though, lies genuine admiration. Many see her as a symbol of resilience, an example of how to face adversity head-on and come out stronger on the other side. Coworkers confide in her more openly now, sharing their own struggles and seeking advice. She listens without judgment, offering support whenever she can. Then one day an email arrives from someone unexpected, the woman from the flight. It's brief and formal, thanking her for inspiring positive changes within the company. Attached is a document outlining new initiatives aimed at improving passenger-staff relations. Reading through the details, she recognizes elements of the ideas she discussed during her conference speech. While the email doesn't include an apology or acknowledgement of their shared history, it feels like closure nonetheless, a quiet recognition of the impact they've both had on each other's lives. She responds graciously, expressing gratitude for the update and wishing the company success moving forward. Sending the reply feels cathartic, like closing a chapter she didn't realize was still open. Though their paths may never cross again, she knows they'll always be connected through the lessons they've learned. As months turn into years, the flight attendant continues to evolve. She writes a memoir detailing her experiences, weaving together stories of triumphs, failures, and everything in between. The book becomes a bestseller, praised for its honesty and relatability. Readers write letters thanking her for putting words to feelings they couldn't articulate themselves. One note stands out. "Your story reminded me that it's okay to stumble as long as you keep moving forward." Through it all, she remains grounded, remembering where she came from and how far she's come. She no longer sees herself as the person who lost control on that fateful flight. Instead, she views herself as someone who took responsibility for her actions, embraced growth, and used her voice to spark meaningful change. And as she gazes out the window during yet another flight, watching clouds drift lazily by, she smiles, knowing she's exactly where she's meant to be. Years have passed since the incident that once defined her life, and the flight attendant finds herself reflecting on how much has changed. What started as a moment of anger and impulsivity transformed into a journey of self-discovery, resilience, and unexpected influence. She's no longer just a crew member navigating long hours and challenging passengers. She's become a voice for change in an industry that often overlooks the humanity of its workers. Her memoir, now a staple on bookstore shelves, continues to inspire readers from all walks of life. People write to her regularly, sharing their own stories of struggle and redemption. Some are fellow flight attendants who feel seen and heard for the first time. Others work in completely different fields, but relate to the universal themes of making mistakes, learning from them, and finding strength in vulnerability. Each letter reminds her that everyone carries their own battles, even if they don't show it. The airline where it all began has undergone significant changes. The training programs she unknowingly helped inspire are now standard across the company. New hires learn not only about safety protocols but also about emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and the importance of mutual respect. Passengers notice the shift too. Flights feel less tense, interactions more human. It's not perfect, but it's progress. And while she knows she wasn't solely responsible for these improvements, she takes quiet pride in knowing her actions planted seeds for something bigger. Occasionally, she crosses paths with the woman from that fateful flight. Their encounters happen at industry events or charity functions, brief moments filled with polite conversation and nods of acknowledgement. There's no animosity anymore, just an unspoken understanding that they played parts in each other's growth. The woman seems different now, softer around the edges, perhaps humbled by the lessons learned along the way. They never discuss the past directly, but there's a mutual respect that wasn't there before. Back in her day-to-day life, the flight attendant cherishes the little things, the laughter shared with colleagues during layovers, the grateful smiles of passengers, the quiet moments gazing out at endless skies. These small joys remind her why she fell in love with flying in the first place. Traveling isn't just about destinations, it's about connections, the fleeting yet meaningful bonds formed between strangers thousands of feet above the ground. Her advocacy work expands beyond aviation over time. She starts speaking at schools, community centers, and corporate offices, encouraging people to embrace empathy and accountability in their daily lives. Her message is simple: we're all human, and we all make mistakes. What matters is how we choose to grow from them. Audiences respond warmly, drawn to her authenticity and relatability. She becomes known not just as a former flight attendant, but as someone who turned adversity into opportunity. At home, her personal life flourishes too. The stress and scrutiny of those early days taught her the value of balance. She dedicates more time to hobbies she loves, painting, hiking, cooking meals for friends, and surrounds herself with people who uplift and support her. Therapy remains a cornerstone of her routine, helping her stay grounded and mindful. Friends often comment on how much lighter she seems compared to years ago, like a weight has been lifted. One evening, as she sits on her balcony watching the sunset, she thinks back to the younger version of herself, the one who boarded that plane filled with frustration and pent-up emotions. Would she recognize the person she's become? Probably not. But she hopes that version of herself would feel proud. Life hasn't been easy, but every challenge has shaped her into someone stronger, wiser, and kinder. She smiles, thinking about the ripple effect of her journey. A single moment, a slap heard round the world, led to conversations that touched countless lives. Airlines improved policies, passengers became more mindful, and co-workers found courage to speak up. Even the woman from the flight evolved, using her position to advocate for positive change. It's proof that even the messiest moments can lead to something beautiful if approached with honesty and intention. As the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, she feels a deep sense of peace. She's come so far, not because she avoided mistakes, but because she faced them head-on. Growth isn't linear, she realizes. It's messy, unpredictable, and sometimes painful, but it's also worth it. The next morning, she wakes up ready to tackle another day. Her uniform fits comfortably, a familiar second skin. As she boards the plane, greeting passengers with a warm smile, she carries with her the lessons of her past. Every flight is a new beginning, a chance to connect, to learn, and to grow. And though the skies may be vast and unpredictable, she knows she'll always find her way. One step, one conversation, one moment at a time.